So now that we've talked about the law of demand, which states that as price goes up, quantity demand goes down, price goes down, quantity demand goes up, let's talk about just what exactly is demand and how do we construct it. So the first question is, what is demand? As I mentioned earlier, there's a distinction between demand and quantity demanded. So when we talk about the law of demand, we don't say that as price goes down, demand goes up. We say as price goes down, quantity demanded goes up. So demand is a relationship. That's all that it is. Demand is a relationship between the price of the good and the quantity demanded of the good. Okay? So basically what it's telling you is at each price, how many units of the good or service are demanded. So there's a demand schedule which tells you, which kind of puts that in numbers, says, okay, this is the price, this is how many units are demanded. Here's another price, units demanded, so on and so forth. While the demand curve is a graphical representation of that. So let's look at that, see what that looks like. So here we have a demand schedule, and it says at each price, how many units are demanded. Okay. So here at 50 cents, this is for energy bars. So at 50 cents, there are 22 units demanded. At $1, there are 15. 150, there's 10. 2, there's 7. 250, there's 5. So when you plot these points, so we have A, B, C, D, and E, and then draw a line there, that gives you your demand. Now, the important thing to note here as well is the axes. So when in economics, we put the price on the y-axis and the quantity demanded on the x. That's called an inverse demand curve. So this demand curve is, again, showing you that relationship. At each price, how many units are demanded. Now, as the law of demand states, and as we see here, as price goes up, quantity demanded goes down. As price goes down, quantity demanded goes up. Now, because we have that inverse or negative relationship, a demand curve is going to slope downward. Okay? So again, we have the demand schedule and the demand curve. Now, when it comes to demand, we talked about the income and the substitution effects. But when it comes to actual demand, the basic and core place to start is actually with willingness to pay. So, and we'll do an example in a second, but willingness to pay is the maximum price that somebody is literally willing to pay for a good or service. Now, when it comes down to it, that's going to come from the marginal benefit. So the benefits in general are going to tell you how much it's worth to you. Now, in economics, we assume that people are rational, which means that if something is worth $100 to them, then they are going to pay $100 for it. If you recall back to when we talked about marginal benefit, we said that marginal benefit is the additional benefit you get from an additional unit. So when you look at things at the margin, you evaluate each unit on its own. So you look at the first unit, the second, the third. So you're not looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, it's first, second, third. So let's look at an example of how to apply that in showing a demand and how it's constructed. So if we go over here to our next example, we're going to look at Bobby. And with Bobby, we're going to look at a small can of soda. So not the big cans, the little, whatever, it's 12-ounce cans, kind of like, they're like the size of a phone. So we're going to assume that Bobby walks into a store and he doesn't know what the price of soda is. In Bobby's head, and when it comes to our us in general, we have a benefit of something. Okay, there's some benefit we get from most goods. So looking at Bobby here, all right, when it comes to a can of soda, again, he doesn't know what the price is at this point. Doesn't really matter. So for Bobby, he likes soda. And so for that one can of soda, the benefit that he gets from it is $4. Now, when you talk about benefit in general and marginal benefit, the idea is if you benefit something at X dollars, you're willing to pay up to that amount for it because that's what it's worth to you. And so if you love pizza and you haven't eaten all day and you see a piece of pizza and someone says, all right, how much are you willing to give me for this pizza? If you were truthful, you would tell them, you'd give them a price. And that price would be how much it's worth to you, which is the benefit you get from it. So going back to Bobby here, for that first can of soda, only the first one, the benefit that he gets from that first can of soda is $4. He likes soda. It's good to him, good for him. He likes it. He enjoys it. And so he's willing to pay up to and including $4 for it. So now let's go down to that. Let's say he's had that first can of soda. Now he wants to look at the second one. With that second can of soda, his decision is independent of the first can. The benefit that he got from that first can, it's gone. So after the first can was worth $4 to him. The second can now. He still likes soda. He's still going to get an additional benefit from a second can. But he's not going to get quite as much from the second as he would the first. With the first one, it tasted good. He enjoyed it. It helped to quench his thirst. The first, if anything, that you enjoy is always going to be the best. You're going to get the most satisfaction from it. The second one, you're going to get a little bit less. So he's not going to be willing to pay as much for that second can as he would the first. So let's say it's worth, and the benefit he gets from that second one, not from two, but from the second one, is $3. So that's the maximum he's willing to pay for it. Okay? Now, because the marginal benefit that went down, that doesn't mean that he's getting less benefit up 2 versus 1, because again, the marginal benefit is the additional benefit of an additional unit. So for example, if he bought the first, he would get $4 to benefit from the first and 3 from the second. So his total benefit of 2 would be $7. But again, we're not looking at the total. We're looking at it each individually. So now let's move to the third can. With the third can, he's now had, he's had a decent amount of soda. He's not really thirsty anymore. And, there is too much of the good thing when it comes to food and drinks, at least. And so he's not willing to pay as much for that. It's not worth as much to him. He doesn't get as much benefit. So the marginal benefit of the third one may only be $2. Now the fourth is going to be even more. Now when you go to the fifth, not going to get much out of that. Not going to get much enjoyment. Or he's going to get no more enjoyment. All right, by now, his stomach is full. He's not thirsty. He's had so much of it. If he has any more, he's going to get sick. All right. So he gets no additional benefit. The marginal benefit of the fifth one is just going to be 0. Okay. So now, this isn't the demand. The demand is that relationship between the price of the good and the quantity demanded. So let's look at Bobby's individual demand curve now. So again, keep the idea that the marginal benefit is the additional benefit of additional unit. So that's how much it's worth to him. So for example, for that first can, it's worth $4 to him, which means that if he walks into that store and that soda is priced at $4 or lower, he's going to buy it because it's worth it to him. So in the extreme example, if it's worth $4 to him and it's 10 cents, clearly it's worth more to him than it costs, and so he's going to buy it. It's worth it for him to buy it. So let's go down and look at this. Let's say the price is $5. All right, so it costs $5. At $5, he's not going to buy the first one. It's only worth $4 to him. It costs $5, so it costs more than it's worth. I'm not going to buy it. So at $5, his quantity demanded, down here, is going to be 0. All right, so we have the point here. What about when it's $4? At $4, yep, he's going to buy that first one. He's going to buy it because it's worth 4 and it only costs 4. All right, so he's going to buy the first one. Will he buy the second one? No, because it still costs $4. The first one was worth it to him. The second one is worth $4. Sorry, the second one is worth $3 to him. That's how much benefit he gets. But it's going to cost him 4, so it's going to cost him more than it's worth. So he's going to buy the first, but that's it. So when the price is $4, he's going to demand 1 unit. His quantity demanded is going to be 1. Now say the price is $3. At $3, he's going to buy the first because the first is worth $4. It's only costing him 3. Now he's going to buy the second because the second is worth $3 and it only costs 3. So he's going to buy the first, going to buy the second, not going to buy the third. Third's only worth $2. It costs 3. Not going to buy it. So when the price is 3, we'll buy the first, we'll buy the second. That's it. So when the price is 3, quantity demanded is 2. So now if we go down, you can see that when the price is 2, he's going to buy the first, going to buy the second, going to buy the third, not going to buy the fourth. So when the price is 2, Bobby's quantity demanded is going to be 3. When the price is 1, he's going to buy the first, second, third, and fourth. You're not going to buy the fifth because the fifth isn't worth anything. And when the price is 0, just for argument's sake, let's just say that he'll take a free one at $5, or he'll take a free one for his fifth. So it's 5. Now let's see what that looks like. So what is going to happen is we have these different points here. Now, because we just looked at these wide ranges, we said that if it was, first, second, third, and it was just end up being dollars or whole dollar changes. The demand for Bobby is going to look something like this. So here are the points again, and again, when the price is 4, is going to demand 1. When the price is 3, quantity demand is going to be 2. When it's 2, sorry. Now we have this step here because for Bobby, these are the only points that we have. So with Bobby, we are looking here at his individual demand. Right? It has that same downward sloping demand, that inverse relationship, which we talked about. Now that we looked at one individual demand, we can look at the market demand. So while we had this step looking demand, when we go down to the market, what's going to happen is we are going to have just a large number of prices, an infinitely small number of change in price over an infinitely small change in quantity demanded. And so the demand is going to have this normal downward sloping demand. And so what happens with the market demand is it takes every individual's demand. All right, so we did Bobby's up here, and it at any given price, it'll look at, okay, well, at $5, Bobby doesn't want any, but at $5, Jen wants 3, Kristen wants 4, Steve wants none, so forth. And so it'll take, at each price, it'll sum up all those individual demand curves. At each price, it'll take the quantity demanded of everybody and sum it together. So that is going to be our market demand. So what does that look like? Let's say that our demand curve, which is given here, is price equals minus 2Q plus 100. So it's saying the price of the good is equal to minus 2 times quantity demanded plus 100. Now again, that law of demand is going to show that, where we go here? It's going to show that inverse relationship between price and quantity. And so minus 2, all right, that minus there says that as quantity demanded goes up, price goes down, and vice versa. Okay. So I just put a little tool in here of how to show it. So let's just say that that's our demand, minus 200. Now when you construct the demand, it becomes, the easiest way to do it is normally just to pick out the two endpoints. And so with an equation that's linear, you have y equals mx plus b. Your slope is m is minus 2. The b, which is your y-intercept, is 100. So if that's the case, you know that the y-intercept, which is the price here, it's going to cross there at 100. All right, so one price is 100. When the price is 100, quantity demand is 0. To find where it crosses the x-axis, all right, the quantity axis, you just have price equal to 0. And so a trick is always to find where it crosses one axis, if it's linear, to set the other variable equal to 0. So to find where it crosses price, set quantity equal to 0, because the quantity is here, there, or 0 here. To find where it crosses the quantity axis, set price equal to 0, because price is 0 there. So this is going to be our demand. If, for example, let's say that demand is price equals minus 3Q plus 150. So again, where it crosses, to find where it crosses the price axis, set quantity equal to 0. And so we have minus 3 times 0 is 0, and so it crosses here at 150. And to find where it crosses the quantity axis, set price equal to 0. And so if you set price equal to 0, you have 0 equals minus 3Q plus 150. If you add 3Q to both sides, you get 3Q equals 150. And if you divide both sides by 3, you get Q equals 50. All right, so you have 150 and 50, where the slope of this line is minus 3. So that's a basic way to construct an individual demand curve. And once you take all the individual demand curve of everybody, you sum together all those quantity demanded at each price, and you get your demand curve, which again is that relationship between the price of the good and the quantity demanded.